Suicide statistics.
It may be hard to imagine, but according to the World Health Organization, over 1 million people die by suicide each year. Of these 1 million lives lost to suicide, more than 47,000 lived in the United States. Suicide claims the lives of more than 129 Americans each day, or one person every 11 minutes. This death rate is equivalent to a commercial airliner filled with Americans crashing every other day with all lives lost. And for every life lost to suicide, dozens of people attempt suicide, often causing serious injury or even lifelong disability. If an average of 6 family members are touched by suicide each time someone dies by suicide, then each year more than 280,000 Americans experience the awful psychological and emotional aftermath of suicide. In addition to family, friends, schoolmates, colleagues, co-workers, since the year 2000, 4.5 million of us have been touched by suicide. Many of these deaths occur among our children younger than 12 years old, and many more are teenagers or young adults, just as they begin their lives as college students, servicemen and women, or enter the workforce. You may ask, what is happening? Why are so many people dying from suicide? Suicide is not a new problem. Suicide is as old as mankind. But suicide is preventable. According to the National Institute of Mental Health, 90% of Americans who die by suicide are suffering from clinical depression or some other diagnosable psychiatric illness or substance abuse disorder. For all ages, suicide is a serious issue. But for veterans, the suicide rate is alarmingly high, with 22 deaths by suicide each day. In the U.S., suicide is the 10th leading cause of death. Suicide is the 3rd leading cause of death in the U.S. among youth ages 15 to 24, with 6,062. Suicide is the 2nd leading cause of death in Washington among youth ages 15 to 24, with 154. These are only the statistics for those who die by suicide. For every death, there are an estimated 25 to 100 attempts. How does Washington rank? Washington ranks 24th, with 16.54 per 100,000. Just a little above the national average of 14.24 per 100,000. Alaska is number 1, with almost 50 per 100,000, while Connecticut is number 50 with just over 6 per 100,000. Every 25 minutes in Washington, a youth ages 15 to 24 attempts suicide. Every 39 seconds in the U.S., a youth ages 15 to 24 attempts suicide. Males complete suicide at a rate 4 times higher than females, even though females attempt suicide at a rate 3 times higher than males. This may be because males use more lethal means.
In the U.S. in confinement, suicide is the leading cause of death among youth ages 15 to 24. The rate of suicide in confinement is 3 to 9 times higher than in the community among youth ages 15 to 24. The most common method used in confinement is hanging at over 85% among youth ages 15 to 24. Firearms are used in more than 50% of all suicides in the community among youth ages 15 to 24. This chart shows the fatality rate by suicide method. 85% of suicide attempts by firearms are fatal. 68% of suicide attempts by suffocation or hanging are fatal. 30% of suicide attempts by falls or jumping are fatal. 2% of suicide attempts by poisoning or overdose are fatal. 1% of suicide attempts by cutting are fatal. Depression is the single most common symptom, present in over 60% of all suicides. The rate of suicide for individuals with a history of self-harm is 6 times higher than those not self-harming. Suicide occurs at a rate 3 times higher for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, questioning, intersex youth than for heterosexual youth. This represents 30% of all suicides, while LGBTQI are less than 10% of the population. Bullying or victimization is the main precipitating factor for LGBTQI suicides.
In 2020, the most common methods of suicide were by firearms, 52%, suffocation including hanging, 32%, toxic substances, 8%, other, 7%, and cutting, 1%. This chart shows the rate of suicide among males ages 15 to 24 in 2020 by race ethnicity. Native Americans had the highest rate at 37.3 per 100,000, while Asian Pacific Islanders had the lowest rate at 14.6 per 100,000. For females, Native Americans were highest at 11.8 per 100,000, while blacks were lowest at 4.6 per 100,000.
In JR, there have been 9 completed suicides since 1990. None of the 9 were on suicide watch at the time of their death. This was before JR introduced the current policy and training curriculum in 2001 and reduced disciplinary isolation. According to the Youth Risk Survey in 2019, the CDC reports the following results for high school students who reported seriously considered, had planned, had attempted, or needed medical treatment due to an attempt in the last 12 months. The chart shows the breakdown of percentages by females, males, and LGBTQI females and males. The numbers are considerably higher for the LGBTQI population. Also, female percentages are higher than males in all categories. There are 3 completed youth suicides each week in Washington. There are 27 youth hospitalizations due to suicide attempts each week in Washington. There are 84 youth ER visits due to suicide attempts each week in Washington. There are 391 youth suicide attempts each week in Washington. There are 6,062 completed youth suicides each year in the United States. There are 55,676 youth hospitalizations due to suicide attempts each year in the United States. There are 171,281 youth ER visits due to suicide attempts each year in the United States. There are 1,100,000 youth suicide attempts each year in the United States. These are all large numbers, but the largest number of all is 1, because every statistic is made up of individuals. The most important individual is the one you are working with right now. 1.